get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit right there. All right, so we're gonna have Laura's audio in the background today. Hopefully, you'll hear her a lot better. Let's talk about some jobless claims numbers. What a shocker! What a shock! First week, and here we are, diving claims. So you're telling me if you give people a choice between taking unemployment insurance and earning potentially in some states more than you would from when you were working before coronavirus, and going back to work and earning a paycheck. So you're telling me that there is a small. I believe Americans like to work. Most Americans, they want to work when they can. I think the Protestant ethic is still there, but unfortunately, there are some that would rather just take the paycheck. I mean, I think that's obvious, right? That's human behavior. All right, that's human nature. Give people the easy road. Look, M. Scott Peck, babe, the road less traveled. You know what I mean? And people don't take always the road less traveled. That's why it's called the road less traveled. All right. Unfortunately, there are just some people who would rather not and would take the insurance if they could. So here we are, first week, and we see a dive in jobless claims. Now, admittedly, that there's going to be, it will be worse when that happens, okay? It will be, well, what I mean by that is it will be worse in the next couple of weeks. It's always a lag. It's always a delay. But people know it's coming, so they immediately begin to prepare for it, okay? Here we go. Here's the PPD story on jobless claims. I got you in the corner over there, all right? But even though you can't really hear her right now, it's just so we can hear her audio, all right? Actually, for 1 second, I'm going to kick you and boot you so people can see a little bit, all right? Jobless claims fell sharply for week ending August 1st, beating forecast. Insured unemployment rate took a dive in positive weekly jobs data. Where was the trend on Twitter today, folks? Where was the 1.19 rounding up? Where was the 1.2 M trending on the side of Twitter this morning? Where did that go? The numbers aren't high enough. This was always something that really got to me because we always report this. This is a weekly thing at PPD, as subscribers know. We give charts. We show everybody what's going on, the historical context. We give it to you. We give everything to you. And then when this pandemic shutdown strategy went into effect, of course, it devastated this, which was at historic lows, both of these indicators at historic lows. And then the media jumped on. They wanted to talk about it. Trends, 2-point this, 4-point that, Now it's a positive report. Where the hell's the number trending on Twitter? Nobody wants to talk about it anymore? Fair weather reporters, man. Actually, the reverse, right? Rainy weather reporters under Trump. If it was Barack Obama, it'd be fair weather. But we're talking about Donald Trump, so it's rainy weather, right? The U.S. Labor Department reported in issues jobless claims fell significantly to 1,186,000 for the week ending August 1st, a decrease of about 250,000. The previous week was upwardly revised, but only by 1,000 to 1,435,000. Those revisions, that is a very small, we've seen some big revisions since people began pushing, re-shutting down the economy or halting it. Like we heard, we got the announcement yesterday, Roy Cooper, the idiot, he's going to keep going, even though there is, well, I'll tell you what, where we are, people are furious. Absolutely furious. They're pissed off. I mean, it really doesn't matter whether they're Republicans. There are more Republicans here. Democrats, though, when it comes to the school thing and kicking this stuff, at some point it becomes about your livelihood, not your political affiliation, right? The hospital beds are not flowing out into the streets, but we saw the impact of these people in jobless claims over the last couple of weeks. And it was like a reverse V because we're looking for a decline here. Instead of an uptick, we're looking for obviously a decline. And it was moving in a reverse V fashion until these idiots began doing what they're doing for political considerations. And you can see that right here. All right, the figures were far more positive than economists expectations. Forecasts range from a low of 1,380,000 to a high of 1.5 million. The consensus was 1.422. Where's the 1.422 M? What's the matter, Jack? You don't want to trend that today, Jack? You sniveling little turd, you yuppie little turd. The 4-week moving average came in at 1,337,750, down 31,000. The previous week's average was upwardly revised by just 250 from 1,368,500 to 1,368,750. The advanced, and here's what I care about, as you all know, because under Donald Trump, and unfortunately didn't make it into this report, I'm going to revise this, or I'm going to have it revised. Every single one of these jobless claims data, it's important for people to understand where we were before. The advanced seasonally adjusted insured unemployment rate took a dive to 11% for the week ending July 25th, down 0.6% from the previous week's unrevised rate. Look at first of all, folks, before I even move on, look at where it was. Here's the election of Donald Trump. There it is right there. And this isn't like I'm saying, it's not like a pro-Trump thing. Historical context matters. Here is the election of Donald Trump. Optimism kicks in. Here's the inauguration because things get, oh my God, imagine that. People understand and make plans for the future. Things started to drop. As you can clearly see, there was a decline before that under Barack Obama. There is some credit deserving to that, but not really, as we've been over before, because labor force participation was still abysmal. All right, so we keep going. And under Donald Trump, it's hovering at like 1.2%, and it hits an all-time low of 1.1 several times from 2018 on. But for the most part, it stayed at 1.2% without rising at all. At all. Not 1.3, stayed at 1.2. The only time that it left 1.2 was to dip back down to the record of 1.1. Then coronavirus hits, and we spike to ridiculously high record levels, not even close to the series data in the past. But now again, we did see some sort. If we look at the 1 year, we saw a very dramatic V-shaped decline until this is May 16th, until these geniuses and these people willing to sell out your families for an election because guarantee this will all end if Joe Biden wins. This will all end. But here we see a dramatic decline. And then the pushers came back, and the trend is a downward trend, yes. But we were seeing slight upticks, then down, and slight upticks, then down. We saw it actually pop up last week, or the week prior to July 25th, July 18th, the week ending July 18th. It popped up to 11.6. And now we took a dive, 0.6 of a percentage point, which is a big decline for this indicator, and we're down to 11%. It is crucial where we go from here. It is crucial. If Republicans cave and give Democrats this stupid provision again, and we're going to see Nancy Pelosi in a minute in an interview, if they do this in the section about fact-checking frauds, if they do this again, they will hurt this indicator. The jobs are actually there. The openings are there. Even jobs that were being held in the Paycheck Protection Program, they are still there under this ridiculous policy where paying people to hold people's jobs who went and collected unemployment. This is actual hard empirical evidence, but we had been hearing now for a week. Finally, people are coming back. Finally, well, because it's running out. It's not that the job is not there waiting for them. It was a stupid policy. And Republicans, they better start giving people a reason to vote for them. I'm talking about Republican lawmakers. They don't defend their base against assaults on their rights. They don't defend the American way of life against Marxist groups proposing as civil rights groups. They don't defend their economic freedom and their economic survival against petty tyrants who use a pandemic to take their livelihoods away from them. They don't defend their children and their right to go back to school. They've effectively let China and a treasonous group in this country, whether it's the media or a political party, handicap our children and stunt our future. They don't defend their people against big tech. I'm wondering what the hell is the point of voting for a Republican in November? I'm really, what reason are you giving anybody to vote for you? And we do see people like Lindsey Graham in trouble. Not like, Lindsey Graham's going to win. I don't believe these even race polls, but Lindsey Graham should be winning by 20 points like Lindsey Graham always wins by. But he's not. And it's not because Democrats don't like him. It's because Republicans and Republican independents don't like him. That's why. Because of his charade with Sally Yates yesterday. When it comes to economics, I take a lot. But when it comes to economics, I get pissed. Because this is about your people's livelihoods. Everything is about, sadly, everything is about the dollar. Can money buy happiness? No, but it can buy some stress relief. If you don't believe that, then you're a fool. You can be climbing the hierarchy of needs and never reach self-actualization if you don't meet your basic needs. Whatever your version or your definition of that is, self-actualization. The American dream. I just want a recliner in a living room. That's my own. That could be the top of your peak. You'll never make it. And there are people willing to sacrifice those dreams and those livelihoods to win an election. And that really pisses me off. Something should not be up for political debate, which we're going to talk about again in a little bit. It's just lies, blatant lies to hurt you. Anyway, the advanced number for seasonally adjusted insured unemployment during the week ending July 25th was 60,107,000. That's a big decrease, almost 844,000. All right, and I'm not going to continue to go on here. There are some other things I want to talk about and a lot to cram through in a very short amount of time, but extended benefits were available in all 50 states. By the way, the Labor Department now says all 52 states, including Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. Puerto Rico is a territory, and the District of Columbia is a cesspool. I don't even want to call it anything else. I mean, you're not a state. They're starting to push it. This is what they do, these little things they do, where it's like, oh, it wasn't a state. They'll make it so acceptable in terminology when you start playing around with words and vocabulary, speech, language. That's how they move the needle on these like things that'll never pass at the ballot box. Okay. The highest inch, and they'll wait. They'll play the long game and they'll wait.
Like they did with the school system.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's exactly right. We didn't click her on, but she said like they did with the school system. You want to comment on that real quick?
Well, I'm just saying that the left is very good at the long game. They will manipulate you and say, "Oh, just a little bit here," and we're not going to go any further.
Take an inch, a little inch, a little inch. Yeah, no, she's totally right. She's totally right. All right. The highest insured unemployment rates was on the Don Smith show. And folks, I don't pitch that enough. Every Saturday at noon, Blog Talk Radio, we do a weekly recap on the Don Smith show. He's got a great show. I do a 15, 20-minute segment. We were talking about this last Saturday, and he said, you know what, in the beginning, the evidence was pretty clear by the highest insured unemployment rates, the largest number of claims, where they were coming from. But now, and the question he asked me was, it was clear before, New York, Michigan, the lockdown states, California, they had the highest insured unemployment rates. California's still up there. What's going on now? It doesn't look like you could see much discernible. Well, what happens is eventually supply lines don't work like the way it's not simple. So when you shut down Michigan, right? Auto workers, for instance, maybe they get materials from a place in Louisiana, or definitely what they do. Once you hurt the auto industry, you'll later hurt the energy industry. So then you'll hurt Louisiana. Okay. So it's not a state by state policy thing anymore. We did see it clear as day in the data in the beginning of all of this. But now supply chains work that way. Lines work that way. You hurt them. They take time to rebuild. And it's just the way it is, so eventually it looks more obscure, right? But it's not. They did this. The largest increase in initial claims for the week ending July 25th were Virginia, Nevada, which was a high lockdown state. But now, again, there's some states in here you wouldn't be surprised with. Yeah, New Jersey's in there. California's in there. Florida had those system issues, but Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, they are the suppliers of a lot of these chains, right? And Missouri, Indiana, they're right before New Jersey. So after a while, the data becomes very fudged. But the bottom line here is, folks, this is a good report. And it is like, I don't know what else to say, but I told you so. Really? Like, I don't know what else to say. And I remember even on this show, not too long ago when this all started, arguing with several people, but arguing with people over whether or not this would happen. And no, it's not going to. No. Yes, it was going to. I mean, hello. It's common sense, of course. And it was going to take time for things to come back. This is the start of some dip in unemployment claims. If they get their way and they push and get pauses like Roy Cooper was happy to do here in North Carolina, they were happy to do that. Even Abbott caved. Let's be real. Even Governor Abbott caved in Texas. He hurt the state. He hurt the state. This was never about money versus health. This is always about health versus health, well-being. I saw a horrible stat the other day, by the way, about other conditions. Like 44% of people that are older and, need more preventative care are not getting the care that they need because they're afraid they're afraid to go into the hospital or wherever it is that they may go to get it. They're afraid to go into doctor's offices, or these are not essential services. Even things you would be surprised, folks, what's considered elective surgery in a lot of places, in this country, in healthcare in general. You'd be shocked at what's considered elective surgery. And I'm going to leave a lot of the coronavirus stuff out, but I will tease a story that's coming up that we're going to have about vaccines and why Moderna gets all the coverage and why, in fact, they're not even the leader in the race to get a vaccine for coronavirus. Yet you would think they are because of all the favorable coverage they get, which has, of course, to do with political connections that they have. So I will tease that, but they are not even on the leaderboard, folks. They're not. They are behind quite a bit. All right. So speaking of which, though, in the CARES Act, all right, the negotiations in D.C. hit a wall last week. Right. And they thought they had some kind of a deal. They even brought in Steve Giveaway, the mansion, Mnuchin. Steve Giveaway, the mansion, Mnuchin. I like that. Right. So he comes in and he becomes the chief negotiator, and he gives everything away. He gives everything away. He helps out the teachers unions who are, supporting the lockdowns. I mean, everything that hurts, not only hurts the American people, but the long-term prospects of Republicans' political survival, he gives away to Democrats. They get all of these wins, which people just will try to dismiss as like little sidebar wins. Well, little things, a lot of little things add up to big things. Okay. Anyway, Mnuchin came in and it hit a wall. Meadows even. I mean, I'll tell you what, I trust Mark Meadows a hell of a lot more than I trust Steve Mnuchin. And they were actually this is going to piss you off. One of the things that they're actually close, and it's not like they're coming to an agreement on anything or everything, but one of the issues that they were coming close to was insured unemployment benefits. And instead, so this is how stupid these people are. If you want a President Biden, extend the benefits. Extend the extended benefits and the specific pandemic response benefits. Knock yourself out. Because by September, early October, you'll give Joe Biden's campaign an opening to be able to attack Donald Trump and the economy. Trump used to lead Biden on the issue of the economy by 20 points. And Robert Barnes and I talked about this yesterday. He used to lead him by like 20 points. Now it's like 5. That is not good enough, folks. It's simply not good enough if you want Trump to win, if you're a Trump supporter. It's not good enough. All right? So it is what it is. However, Nancy Pelosi, and I will give Betsy Woodruff, I'll give her some credit here, and I would like to share this because I really do. I want to share. It's just YouTube, and I'll make it bigger so everybody can see it easier. But it's a part of the interview when they talk about this is all about the deal. It's all about whether or not they'll have a deal. And that would, by the way, give, like, if you're married like Laura and I, and you have kids, depending on, we have 3, it's like, I don't know, what does that come to? Like $3,400, right? So there's another talk of stimulus in there. If you're single, you're a worker, or if you're on SSI or SSDI, then you'll get, I think $1,200 is the deal. So they're keeping a lot of that. But there's other things that are being thrown in there. Democrats even tried throwing immigration again in there, all sorts of little goodie bag stuff. But the bottom line is Republicans offer to do a short-term extension of some of these programs and then do piecemeal, right? So instead of throwing this together in one huge $3 trillion bill, why don't we just extend? We know we need to extend the unemployment benefits, although I will not concede that. You don't need to extend the unemployment benefits. You need to stop lying and using fake science to justify shutdowns that have never worked in the history, never been done in the history of civilization. And you need to just open the economy. The jobs are there. So I don't concede that, you need to do that. Anytime there's bipartisan agreement in Washington, D.C., rest assured you're getting screwed. What do you want to say? You're good? Oh, I thought you had something you wanted to say. Anytime there's something in D.C. that everyone agrees with, you could just take it to the bank that you are getting screwed. Because that's what bipartisan means. Bipartisan means the slime bags all agree on screwing you. That's what it means. Anybody who's worked in this business for as long as, any amount, that's what is coming your way, folks. If it's nonpartisan, it's part of the construct to screw you and to preserve the status quo. The CBO is nonpartisan. We're going to talk about that in a second. The CBO was put in place for the Great Society to justify spending on big government programs. That's what it was. And now its job is to preserve the status quo. How do we know that? While they're talking in this interview, Betsy Woodruff is asking Nancy Pelosi about why didn't Democrats at least just go along with the extension of benefits, and then later on You can, figure out how you're going to put this all together in one bill. At least Republicans were trying to give you an extension. They don't want to spend $3 trillion again, which is, got folks, start adding it up. How much has been spent? Democrats always get Republican presidents to spend like drunken sailors, and then they don't look like the fiscally conservative party anymore. I actually would have been all right with certain infrastructure programs because under Trump, I would have been. I will not be good with an infrastructure program under a President Biden or back when it was a President Obama, because infrastructure doesn't work the way they pretend or think that it works. Many infrastructures sectors in this economy, bridges, dams, they're run by private companies. You can't just give the government and unions money and think they're going to revamp that. It's not owned by the government. It had to be something like the Trump administration's plan, where it's a public-private partnership and it would be a benefit to the economy. And frankly, it needs to be done. We just need to take money away from other places where we're just blowing it, wasting it, which brings me back to this interview. This is a lie. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and all Democrats have repeated over and over and over again. Her answer right before, because it's about 8-minute interview. I'm not going to play the whole interview. I just want to show you. I'll tell you where we are in the interview. Woodruff asked her why they wouldn't do anything piecemeal and just do a short-term extension. Why should we spend $3 trillion all at once? Why can't we iron out this stuff little by little? Why aren't Democrats okay with that? She goes on and on in a tangent, which was completely irrelevant to the question Woodruff asked her. Completely irrelevant. Later, she has a meltdown in this interview because it goes to show you that she cannot take tough questions. Nancy Pelosi needs the handicap. It's the older she gets, she's just becoming an old, nasty white woman. And I don't really care what I'm in a form to, I don't care how many people want to go back and take little clips because I know they probably will. She's just becoming an old, nasty white woman who expects the media to be her lapdog. It's a better way to put it. And God forbid you challenge her. How dare you? How dare you ask me a tough question? And she wigs out. She totally wigs out. But she goes into this irrelevant thing, all right? And she brings up the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act when Woodruff talks about Republican objections to spending $3 trillion. And she goes into a lie that it is a lie. And I hear it all the time from Biden to Pelosi to Democrats all on DC. Just listen for a second. Let's pop this up. Let me get this and the video. I'll probably block my little mug out while I share this with you. Okay. Make it big so the folks can see. It's just a YouTube video. I just was trying to find a spot where basically, whoops, I didn't give you audio, folks. All right. Oh, it would have been pointless to share it with them if it wasn't audio, right? All right. Here we go. Okay. Take a gander. False. Absolutely false. You folks can hear me, right?
No audio.
Absolutely false. Can you hear me now? Maybe I just put you back up. They can't hear? All right. That is not true. Absolutely not true. All right.
They can hear me and you. They could not hear the video.
Oh, I want to go back to that then. Hold on. We're going to rewind that. Oh, they need to hear it. Sorry, folks. You need to hear it. Okay. Let me go back. That's because the first time I clicked it, it was don't share audio or share audio. I think I hit the wrong one. All right. Let's do it again, though, because I want them to hear it. All right. Bing. It did it again. All right. She says that was okay to share. It was okay to spend that money, $3 trillion that was added to the deficit from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That's what she says. All right. And that is not true. It is absolutely false. The CBO, when they project something, when somebody makes a proposal like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was the first proposal, was the first overhaul to the US tax code in 31 years, major reform, okay? Their job, that is the nonpartisan, when you hear that term, folks, it should be a red flag to you that this organization's job is to protect the status quo. That is their role in the construct. And the CBO will come out and static score. They can't dynamic score, even though they have tried. They cannot dynamically score, which means to consider the impact that the policy may have on economic growth or revenues, whatever it may be. They can't. And they statically score. And they said and projected that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would add, it was about $3 trillion. So she was roughly in the ballpark with that figure over 10 years. It's not true. It was never true. For people who understand economics, it was never true. But then the New York Times, they roll with it. The Washington Post, CBO, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to cost $3 trillion over 10 years. Not only did the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act not add to the deficit, but it actually increased revenues, which helped to offset in the programs that are the major causes of our debt and deficits. The clip didn't think the audio was appropriate. Yeah, I guess so, right? If you think we're that far off from like real-time blipping, real-time censorship, give it 10 years, folks. Give it 10 years. I'm sure there's 50 employees at Google right now trying to figure out how to do that crap. All right. But it was never going. The point is, and this is, I'm going to repeat it because it's an important takeaway. It was never true. And Newt Gingrich was right that the CBO should be abolished. The role of the CBO is to not accurately score the impact of public policy on debt, deficits, the economy. That was never their role. I don't know where that came from. Those bureaucracies were established to justify the Great Society and government spending that used to scare the hell out of Americans. So Democrats or progressives, leftists in general would come up with these big government programs. America was never about that. They never liked that kind of crap. And they needed somebody, something, some entity, some authority to calm them down and justify these programs. And that is what the CBO does. Anyway, now we have, and then they'll always say later, oops. They'll always say that later. Oops. In fact, here's the new budget outlook. We were wrong. And I know there's probably an echo in here, guys. I mean, I'm sure there is. Oh, not an echo, but like lack of furniture echo, That's the way it rolls with them. That's what their job is. It's not an accident. It's not an oops. That's what they do. They did it with Obamacare. In fact, the CBO was in the White House trying to figure out how to lie to you about the cost and impact of Obamacare. They were trying. Oh, Laura wants to say something. Go ahead.
What about that clip where the guy, I can't remember his name, but he was on stage and he was pretty much telling the people that they're stupid, that they're...
Oh, the MIT professor. She's talking. Yeah, the MIT professor. She's talking about the MIT professor. That was weird. What's going on with your audio? We're having like audio issues today. The audio for the video didn't work. We tested this yesterday. We went through, we spent like 2 hours yesterday testing this new setup. So much for that. And we're going to do that with Barnes after the show, by the way, because of the audio yesterday. We're going to do some more testing. But things happen live, right? That's live podcasting for you. Yeah, I mean, she's I forgot that joker's name already, but right. I mean, he really revealed that. And by the way, the media had a complicit hand in that. They absolutely knew the deal. And anyway, in the article, Joe Biden's tax plan would shrink GDP and stifle workers' wages. We and the Tax Foundation put out some projections. I mean, the Tax Foundation was separately. I'm just saying we added the Tax Foundation in there kind of as a way to say, see, we're not alone. That was the point of that. And actually, I think the Tax Foundation was being a little bit generous with Joe Biden. We think workers' wages growth in workers' wages will be hurt by at least a third if Joe Biden has his tax plan. And I don't think the Tax Foundation took into consideration the same data set that we used, which was from left-wing bureaucracies, by the way. We did not use some like heritage think tank database. We used data from the OECD, the International Monetary Fund, and the CBO. That's where we get the data for these projections. It's not like we go and run some right-wing data source. These are left-wing bureaucracies. And we use 50 years of data from the industrialized world to show the impact that corporate tax rates can have on two things. Really, it's revenue and growth really are two things. It's like one thing wrapped up in one, right? So because, and this is where the CBO plays little games, when the economy grows, revenue increases. All right, revenues to the treasury increases. There is a range where you can cut taxes too low and you will lose revenue. You will. There's in that range, the low end for corporate tax rates is 15%. The high end is 25%. You have to stay within that range. That's what the data suggested before you start to lose revenues. So we're going to fact check what Nancy Pelosi said here. And we're going to go right to, and I'm going to skip a lot of this crap. All right. And by the way, people like the New York Times had to revise or retract stories because of their phony projections. The recent budget outlook that was released by the CBO, which is right here, and you can click on it if you go to this story. Like I said, found the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act not only did not add to the federal deficit like Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats, Joe Biden repeatedly state falsely, but what resulted were revenue increases that, according to even the CBO, are offsetting gains in deficit drivers like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and defense spending. Those are the drivers of federal deficits. And don't get debt and deficits mixed up. Dan Mitchell, and he's from the Cato Institute, so I'm going to give you fair warning, but Dan Mitchell has done great work on this for PPD. If you guys just type in debt deficits or something, you'll probably get 10, 15 stories over the years from Dan Mitchell trying to explain the difference between debt and deficits and which one is the problem and which one is not. And he'll argue spending, not deficits, are the problem. And I know that is the problem. And I know that sounds crazy, but do it. It's worth it. Because when you hear these idiot politicians who I'm not even sure understand the math, I really, at this point, Laura, I'm pretty convinced they're too stupid to understand what I'm saying right now. Many of them are just dumb, right? I mean, let her chime in here for a second before.
But that's why they hire people to do their job.
To read bills, to do that. You're right. They can't do this math themselves. They're not smart people. They're politically savvy, many of them, but they're not smart. They know how to pivot. They know it, right? Yeah, and you could probably hear like when she chimes in like that. But like 50 years of data. Here is the graphics. Chris Edwards, by the way, from the Cato Institute, has done work too, using the same data, shows the same thing. This is the relationship between the corporate tax rate and corporate tax revenues as a percentage of GDP. You see the corporate tax rate decline, you see revenues increase. Again, there is a long run revenue maximizing corporate rate, and the range is between 15 and 25%. If you go above 25, they'll start engaging in tax avoidance. You'll hurt economic growth, and combined together, you will see a reduction in revenues. If you cut the corporate tax rate below 15%, you'll see economic growth. You will. But it's cut so low at that point for at least current economic activity projections. Like you would need a lot more. Let me explain it like this. You would need many more businesses as a tax base to get the same amount of revenue. So there is a point where too much is what I'm saying. All right. Just for all these people out here who think I'm some radical right-wing guy, cut every tax shipping zero. That's not what the evidence suggests. Biden proposes to re-raise the corporate income tax rate from 21%, which is where it was set under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, under the Trump tax reform, to 28%. Several things will happen. One, revenue will decrease. It will not increase. It will decrease. Economic growth will get hurt. At least 1% GDP will be shaved right off the bat. Could be more, but right off the bat, goodbye. And then there's also a very strong, and it's not even like I'm trying to be nice here. It's a very strong relationship between wage growth and corporate tax rates. It'll at least take a third off of wage growth. And you know what? It's not like hard to believe. We saw this under Barack Obama. Wages went nowhere. So we think we're being nice with that projection. I feel confident and conservative enough to give you a third. But in truth, because Joe Biden's going to have a slew of other policies that are going to be bad for business, whether it be his economic left-wing crazy AOC, as his economic policies are, environmental policies are. I'm just trying to take this alone. And I think it's reasonable, conservative, to say you're going to lose at least a point and a quarter off of GDP, and you're going to lose a third of wage growth. Nancy Pelosi continues to repeat this lie, and just so about adding to the deficits, and just so everyone knows, I am not making it up. All right, that clicked. Let's look at the actual budget. Let's look at the actual GDP thing from CBO, the actual projections. And they released, guys, if you want to know where I'm getting this from, they released it for the fiscal year 2019. All right, and they do monthly budget outlooks, and you can, see right for yourself. It doesn't mean, though, that Nancy Pelosi is going to abide by it or pretend or acknowledge even its existence. Okay? It doesn't mean that. There it is right there. And you can see the drivers of debt and deficits are Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and defense spending. The government revenues accounted for $3.5 trillion. The government revenues amounted to $3.5 trillion, which was about $133 billion more than in 2018, before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act really kicked in. And you can read it for yourself. Revenues increased. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act increased revenues. Nancy Pelosi continues with this lie. Joe Biden continues with this lie. And the worst part about it is the CBO, like I said, that's not their role. Their role is to get those headlines in the beginning. When a conservative or a Republican makes any move at all to make some meaningful reform to the tax code, anything to do with the IRS or the Treasury Department, or they go to make some meaningful change to Great Society programs, anything to do with the big bureaucracy, because of course it's not only their ideology, folks. Cutting those programs or reforming the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act didn't really, it's not like a fair tax where it would result in drastic reductions in the need for IRS agents or something, but still, nevertheless, it did its role. So anytime a conservative makes some mention of cutting these things, they're talking about a reduction in bureaucracy. That's their jobs. Those are the jobs that are in the cesspool. That is what fuels Northern Virginia and the DC suburbs, right? So they're never going to let that happen, or at least they will try and do everything in their power to stop it. It is not their role to come back 2 years later and say, oops, I was wrong. Go ahead.
I was just saying that these are the dangers of when you create such entities, because
That's
once
right.
you create them, you're subjugated to them.
It's self-perpetuated. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. It's self-perpetuated. That is the danger of it. They are about self-preservation. That's it. And they become part of the construct. Whereas status quo is just the construct. Remember, think of it like a box. Inside the status quo, the construct is designed to keep the status quo preserved. They're never going to come back and say it. Woodruff, I'll give her credit for beating on her. And if I guess the audio issue is whatever, but you guys should go and look at that interview. She didn't let Nancy Pelosi get away with a lot. I'm just not sure Woodruff even knows this. I'm not, because that's the way the system works.
Well, that's what they're doing now. They're giving misinformation and lack of information. What are our kids taught in history class? It's a 2-piece paper pamphlet.
Right.
Flavor of the month, George Washington.
And they'll get none of that even now. They'll get none of it even now, or at least not for the first 9 weeks in our case. But the idea, but they believe it, is my point. Like, so many of these people believe it. So when the CBO comes out and says the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to add $3 trillion over 10 years, Woodruff and others aren't going back later on and reading the CBO budget outlooks. Like, they believe the construct. Many of them do. And I would argue, and I talk about this a lot with people like off the record, Democrats, whether or not Joe Biden believes some of the stuff that he's even been fact checked on by left wingers like Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post, who is a joke, by the way. Did you see that tweet and Molly Hemingway's response to it? Guy's a total joke. But even he has called him out and said, hey, Joe, this isn't true. That's not true. That was fake news. The truth is, they are part of this construct and the status quo itself. So they aid and abet the construct and so that requires them to have a faith in it. So when the New York Times or somebody reports something, they believe it. They don't, or at least they don't look at it adversarial and with skepticism and scrutiny, is my point. So I'm not sure. She did a good job, though. I don't want to go stray away too much, because she did hold her feet to the fire. Like, listen, is it really Republicans' fault that these programs were not extended? They gave you the opportunity you want a big bill. And of course, she didn't say it, but she was implying you want a big bill because you want all the other stuff that's getting stuffed in there. So she held her feet to the fire. She did. I'm just simply saying this thing is something I hear all the time, and it is not true. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act did not add to the debt and deficit. And I'm going over the hour. We were supposed to have an hour. I'm going to do a little bit over it. That's another great. Laura had and we all talk to each other on this chat on the side. I don't think Joe Biden knows what his tax plan is. No, I don't. All right. I don't think he knows what his own tax plan is. I'm for real with that. I truly, truly do not think so. Joe Biden doesn't tweet for himself. He doesn't come up with this stuff himself. He plagiarized Bernie Sanders' campaign website on most of his policy stuff. Joe is not, I don't think he has a freaking clue. No, to answer that, folks, no, I really don't. That's just what it is. I am going to take a really quick break, because when I get back, I want to talk about, I'm hammering on a left winger. Time to hammer on a right winger. Okay. For fake little factoids that they throw out there. And every year, it seems now, we're getting we get a new claim from this person that she puts across as conventional wisdom in elections. It's never true. And every year we get this, and then she just dismisses all of the talk about it. And so when I'm going to take a real quick break. We'll go over a little bit over an hour today, which was all we could do because hey, you don't get mad at me, folks. Thank the coronavirus shutdown, because all of this stuff was delayed and pushed off. And I really can't just when these guys get here with the equipment and stuff and whatever we might have ordered, I can't just let them roam around. So I just don't trust anybody enough to do that. That's number one. And number two, I'm afraid they'll break something or do something incorrectly. So, things are coming spotty. You can't just buy anything anymore. You can't. Everything's this is 8 to 10 weeks. This is 6 to 8 weeks. And Trump's order today in Wisconsin, which will state that the government must buy for these essential products and parts, and the government must order them from American manufacturers. Why is that an executive order? While I'm elated, I'm over the moon that he's going to sign this executive order. If Joe Biden wins in November, Beijing Biden is going to undo that in a second. Why can we not, as a country, Republicans and Democrats, why can't we even simply agree on that products that are essential to national security and the health and welfare of the American people should be made and manufactured in the United States? Why on earth would you ever rely on Beijing to get things like durable goods that you have, whether it's appliances? Why on earth would you ever rely on Beijing to give you antibacterial, to antibiotics? I mean, this is stupid. I cannot believe this is like a Patrick Howley issue and a Donald Trump issue. This should be a bipartisan agreement. It's crazy. All right. Before I take a break, let me go ahead. Tune in here.
All I wanted to say is the same reason why if you don't let people work and pay them more money to not work, the same reason is it's cheaper and people like to line their pockets. It's simple greed.
Muted myself. Well, that's right. Anything else to add to that? I mean, there was like this culture, even in, and Tucker's very right about this. There was this culture for many, many years before. Now we call them internationals, of course, but they used to be called MNCs, multinational corporations, right? There was for domestic business, at least, there was, I don't want to say a loyalty. Yeah, maybe it is. Like there was some form of nationalism that overcame greed. That overcame greed. But the WTO order, that undid a lot of it. And sadly, we're in this position now because of it. And that's why I call him, Beijing Joe. That's why I call him Beijing Joe or a geriatric Joe, whatever these guys come up with. But Biden he spent, more than 4 decades promoting this. They got their wish 3 decades ago, roughly. And Joe Biden's done nothing about it. He's helped it. Joe Biden was all aboard the TPP, folks. He was all aboard. If Hillary Clinton would have won, we would have had TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We would not have had the resurgence in manufacturing that we had. It never would have happened. All right, look, I'm going to take a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to fact check one more absolutely inaccurate statement. And we'll actually do 3 in 1 because every damn election, she comes up with a new one. It's incredible. All right. All right. But don't forget, folks, what are we, like 25 away? Like Barnes and I were talking about yesterday. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know he was going to say that yesterday on air when he said, I'll make the first contribution. I'll make a significant one. He's not BSing. He'll do it. I know Barnes. I've known him for years now. If he says it, he'll do it. The bottom line is we do believe in this thing. The only concern I had when the idea was brought is that I have seen other people try it. I spoke with Rasmussen about doing crowdfunding or publicly funded polling from Republicans and Democrats. Everybody should fund public polling. All right. Instead of having media organizations, corporate media interests be the funders. And I think we're like, in order to be able to link it right to YouTube, we're like 25 subscribers away, right? Because they give you new, what's the word, Laura? Eligibilities or whatever. Yeah. They give you new eligibilities with more subscriptions and listening hours that you get. And we have enough listening hours. We just need, it's like 29. I just looked, 29 subscribers more, right? So share it with your friends and family, push it out there because it would be nice once Labor Day rolls around, after Labor Day. That used to be a tried and true indicator for when people really started to pay attention. At this point, it's a little bit different, I guess, but that is really a good bar. In 2016, we started at Independence Day. We started a day or two before Independence Day. I think it was July 3rd. Skipped over July 4th. Started tracking, and the first result was a 7-day rolling average. And then we shrunk that down as time got closer. All right, but we'll be there. So share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube page, People's Pundit Daily. All right, and don't play me. I know you're on Facebook. Go over to Facebook, like the page, and the best way to support the show, of course, is to become a subscriber to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/. subscribe. pbdnews.us/subscribe. But YouTube right now really is what matters. If you like the show, you watch the show, share it with your friends and family, folks. If you're a scoper, come on over to YouTube and like the show. Of course, I know you need to have a Google account. But what my concern was that we would, run with a September poll because we really want to track her. And if we would run with a September poll, maybe like the crowdfunding would dry up by like mid-October. And that was my concern. So we really need to get as many channels as we can. All right, I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in 2 minutes. And we'll get into the next fact check before rolling on and taking some questions that Laura had saved from the other day. All right, back in 2 minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear overnight, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Well, I saw Laura, the question Nazi, typing in there. All right. I guess there'll be a lot of them for me. Yeah, I was going to do the 1 o'clock thing, but let's push it a little bit. Let's push, because there's just so much I want to get off my chest. And I know you guys want to talk about what's going on with the SDNY today, the Trump Foundation. I'll just talk about the political aspect of that. I'm not going to get into the legal aspect. That's for Robert Barnes. I'm not a lawyer. He's a lawyer. Although I just, for what's and giggles, was weighing just getting one in Chapel Hill because I feel like it. All right. But anyway, and while we do, I will go over a story that we had published a while back about the Clinton Foundation. All right. And this dual standard has got to stop. It's just got to stop. All right. So basically, I'm listening this morning, getting ready for the show and whatnot. And it's just part of the job. I got to slip between channels. Of course, most of the people in my household want to watch Fox. That's a surprise, But I like Fox Business personally. I don't even like Fox News. All right, for whatever you guys are out there. But I'm listening and I hear Dana Perino. Here we go with Miss Perino, Bush's former press secretary. She's not as bad. She's not like vehemently anti-Trump like some of the other former Bush employees are. But she says when talking about the segment was about holding the debates after early voting and mail-in voting would already start. As people know, I've been a Minnesota guy for a while, talking about Minnesota and the changes in Minnesota and how Republicans could in fact flip the state of Minnesota with the right candidate. Minnesota starts voting very early, did in 2016 as well. And Dana Perino made the claim that people who early vote are people who are decided, so it doesn't really matter. All right? Every election cycle, it seems, we get a new claim from Miss Perino, pronouncing and proclaiming that the claim she's making is conventional wisdom and dismissing naysayers as people who are just, too stupid and don't know, they're not like in the club and don't know the conventional wisdom. It is not true, like the other two. Going back to 2012, she was an unskewer of the polls. So you can do that if you're doing it for Mitt Romney or the Bush wing of the Republican Party. And she made all sorts of claims about unskewing the polls and oversampling, incorrectly using the term, as followers and watchers know that is not the correct use of the term oversampling. All right. And then the idea of waiting for party ID. That is a long running debate in the polling industry, whether or not you should in fact wait for party ID. We don't, and we don't believe in waiting for party ID. If you get enough responses that are if you get enough to at least be representative of the population you're sampling, then when you wait for other factors such as region, education, race, ethnicity, age, gender, the electorate will tell you what it's going to be. The party breakdown is going to be. All right. Then came 26, and she was wrong. Of course, we all know she was wrong. Mitt Romney lost the freaking election. Comes 2016, and in August, she is giving, like the other pundit forecasters who have models who shall not be named on this show, she is giving them fuel and ammunition, talking about segments, or not even, just kind of like affirming what their argument at the time was, which was that nobody has ever been this far behind, this late in the election cycle, who has gone on to win. And in fact, that was the reverse argument people like her and Karl Rove were making in 2012, that Romney was ahead in Gallup, and nobody who was ahead that late in the game had ever lost. No, Romney lost. And in fact, Gallup was wrong. Romney +1 was not right. Okay. And she made this claim in 2016. I wrote a very lengthy article. We've gone over it on the show. Robert Barnes and I spoke about it yesterday briefly during the show yesterday on Wednesday afternoon. That is not true. All right. There have been numerous very big misses, number one. Number two, there are numerous examples going back to the 1930s where you will find, I know polling was early back then, but you will find people leading, having even bigger leads, and then going on to erase those leads, seeing those leads erased and ultimately losing the election. And I've did it with the caveat that at this point we are comparing apples to oranges. The days of Gallup being the gold standard tracker with a few media polls, which were always bad. Media polls were never good. Gallup was the gold standard for presidential tracking polls. Okay? They were never good. So I did it with the caveat that Gallup is no longer around. The gold standard is no longer around. The new gold standards are like pewter. They're not gold. They're pewter. But nevertheless, even if we did take them as apples to apples and as true gold standards, it still isn't true. And now we have this doozy of a claim that there is no early, what she is essentially claiming is that there is no early voter remorse. We've all heard of voter remorse. People who cast their ballot and then whatever throughout the course of the administration or whatever, they have voter remorse and they wish they could have changed their vote. They won't vote for that person again. There was a lot of voter remorse for Barack Obama after 2008. Obviously, he became the first president ever in history to be reelected with a smaller popular vote and electoral college vote share. That claim is also false. We're not the only ones. American Research Group, ARG, several other pollsters have found what we have released and found as well. In Minnesota, important states, not states that are just like whatevs, important states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania is a little bit different. Minnesota was the biggest. Why? 2 reasons. One, they're a little bit more persuadable. That's number one. Number two, early voting starts so early. The Access Hollywood tape came out. New Hampshire, too, was another one, by the way. The Access Hollywood tape came out, hurt Donald Trump for about, I don't have the track and poll data in front of me right now, but I would say about 3 or 4 days. And I don't think it really hurt him that much. There was a certain group where it did, and those were like persuadable women. Later, as time went on, we did start to ask the question, did you vote already early? Because it was relevant. We wanted to know whether people were waiting till election day and what the votes were, what the preference was for all categories of voting. Whether you in-person early voted, you're going to vote on election day, or you mailed in a ballot. In Minnesota, voter remorse for early votes was huge. Folks, there were days where we had like 20% of people who voted early saying that they had voter remorse. It wasn't all for Donald Trump. It was heavily favoring him, though. There were voters who said they also voted for Donald Trump and wish they could change their vote and vote for Hillary Clinton. We found that. It was a lot less. A lot less. And we have done the numbers. It's in How Trump Won, the book written by Joel Pollack at Breitbart and Larry Schweikert, who we had on earlier in the week, right after the 2016 election. They interviewed me for an hour for it. And I wholeheartedly believe that if Minnesota did not start voting that early, that there was enough voter remorse to flip the results of that state. And probably New Hampshire as well, because that was real close. There were disproportionately more than 2-1 of voters who would say they had voter remorse, that said I wish I could have my vote back. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I wish I could have my vote back. I would have rather vote for Donald Trump. The idea that there's no voter remorse in early votes because, well, those are people. Yes, the vast majority are people whose minds have been made up and cannot be changed. But the number, the percentage of people who are truly persuadable people in early vote is about 7-9%, roughly. It mirrors the actual electorate. There really is no difference. There are independents, yes, that vote later. I mean, that's not true. There is a difference. I should rewind that a little. It's just not as big as you would think, as you might think, which was one of the most shocking results that we've ever seen. And there, by the way, it's not just us again. There is a lot of data on this. Early voters absolutely have voter remorse. That's ridiculous. But that's her latest claim. So it's not just false claims from the left, false claims from the right. Of course, there is. Let's take a question or two before I roll into, and then I'm sure one's going to be, you got any Trump Foundation questions? Is that there? Is that there?
Not yet. I'm looking through because I have a lot.
Oh, well, the only reason why I ask is because at some point, I mean, I could use it to roll into the article. We're going to get some news today about the district attorney's office in New York filing charges on the Trump organization for fraud with Deutsche Bank or something like that. I'm not going to talk about like the legal aspect because I'm not a lawyer. I will say that people just simply don't give a they don't care. At this point, they don't even know what to believe. They're fully aware prosecutors use their office for political persecutions. And I can't even call them prosecutions. They're persecutions. But we will talk a little bit about the double standard. I can really quickly answer the question of whether it will matter. No. All right. Nobody will give a crap. All right. All right. Bring in some questions. Bring on the questions.
Here you go. You ready? Jason Bourne from I don't know how many days ago asked you, which campaign do you think is better organized this year to get out the vote?
Oh, that's a good question. The Trump communications team and strategy is not good. Okay. Their get out the vote, however, and this is true of Republicans, period, their get out the vote operation in most states, like Wisconsin, that was really Scott Walker's operation. Minnesota has never looked as strong. There has never been this many field offices. Biden's camp, when it comes to get out the vote, is in disarray. It's in total disarray. Now, I would say, with a warning, if you're a Trump supporter, he had no organization either on Super Tuesday during the primaries because he had the media handicap, and that didn't matter. Trump had no get out the vote operation in 2016. And in fact, the Republican National Committee, the RNC under Reince Priebus, had essentially abandoned him in many very key states: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida. Well, not Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. The state party loved and still loves Donald Trump, the state Republican Party. Florida, they abandoned him. And he did it by himself. You know, he did it with his message. It was the most incredible thing I think I've ever witnessed in politics. But since then, Ronna McDaniel is a prolific fundraiser. She is constantly raising money. And they made the decision after 2016, when Reince Priebus left and she took over, they made the decision to direct a lot of that fundraising to a permanent data operation that could basically fuel the get out the vote. There has never been as many paid staffers in battleground states and states that they think they can expand the map with. There has never been as many for Republicans as there is now. That's it. But Trump's organization is far better. Biden's organization, however, is relying a lot on the handicaps and structural advantages that a Democratic presidential campaign has typically, but will on steroids in this election cycle. Next question.
You should vote for Trump. Question. Where do you think Trump's real national approval is right now?
That's a really good question. Probably around 46, 47%. Right on the line. The typical rule of thumb is that if an incumbent president is at 46, he's in danger of losing. He or she is in danger of losing. If they're above 47, and I said he because we've never had a female president. All right, so get off my case. All right, and people, I mean, the stuff I like preemptively shut people up because I already know something's coming. But 47%, 48%, they're in good shape. 47's a little bit, I'd be a little bit nervous. He's right on the line. 46, 47%. Anything below that traditionally is the death knell. You're done. Trump's approval rating never fared well with big media polls, all reasons of which you could hear yesterday from the show. Data collection modes I've always talked about. Big media polls favor Democrats because they use data collection modes that favor Democrats. That's the simplest way to put it. I would say with Trump, the big media polls are doing something, and this is just to piggyback off because I know I get this is always like a follow-up. Typically, the incumbent president, will get more votes than their approval share because people don't like to rock the boat, and there's a certain number of people who either aren't sure or disapprove of them that will still vote for them because they're the incumbent, and they don't like making big changes if they don't have to, if everything's going well. Fox, others have showed his approval rating is higher than his vote share. So during the coronavirus, they have him at what? It was like 50 or 52, but his vote share was at like 40% against Biden, or 42. That is completely reversed from history. And it is also the case that, and we have measured this, that Trump gets a certain percentage of voters who don't like him. And it's bigger than typical incumbents. They don't like him. They're not going to tell you they approve of him because they don't. They want him off Twitter, right? They don't like that crap. They don't like how he talks, wastes his time like it's the office of the presidency. You don't have to respond to every little puny voice who attacks you. They think it's childish and they think it's small. But a certain percentage of them are still going to vote for him because they think he's doing a decent job. When you break down, okay, you don't approve of him. We'll say overall, Do you approve or disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing as president? That is how we word our approval rating question verbatim. And then we'll say, thinking about the U.S. economy, do you approve or disapprove, blah, 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 of the job Donald Trump is doing as president? Thinking about U.S. trade relations with China or whatever, U.S. trade agreements, do you approve? So you get the idea. Trump is always markedly higher when you break down the actual issues. It's unbelievable. It really is incredible. It's really something to behold. And that's because they personally don't like him. All right. It's like a reverse of what we found under Barack Obama all the time. People liked him, but if you were to ask about individual issues or policy positions, they couldn't stand him. All right. Next question. It's muted on her side. I'm trying to tell. I can't. I lied to her. I said I could do it. I can't.
I said thanks a lot. Thanks for nothing. But moving forward, Irish Girl had a question. She said, Rich, what are your thoughts on what Nevada did, vote by mail and ballot harvesting? Trump looks hard to win in Nevada.
Do that. No. Yeah, Nevada is a very tough state for Republicans to win. And that was exactly true what Robert Barnes said yesterday with how they do things. A Republican needs to get about 45%, and it would be really nice if they could get up there to 46, 47 in Clark County in order to win the state. And now that's even more true since Washoe County has drifted away from them. That used to be a Republican county up in the northwestern part of the state. The rest of Nevada is red. Okay. What they did was cram through everything I have been telling you. And I use Nevada as an example because I knew they were going to do this. If they believed Joe Biden had such a big lead, they'd never be doing this. During their prime, and by the way, this isn't Axios should have been in the fact check segment because they were lying to their readers. They were wrong. Donald Trump was right. In Nevada, in California, and if they had their way, Pennsylvania, Florida too, if they didn't lose in the courts, they want these ballots to go out automatically. I was being nice when I showed you the ballot request thing, which was one, everyone gets a ballot. In prior years, ballots must be requested and inactive voters must update info. Even deceased, change of address flags, and other inactive voters will receive ballots. What Nevada did made that true. Now they've lost in other places, so they'll get ballot requests. But that's why they need these guys, which they will get, or they'll get a quasi version of a ballot harvester. Because now in some states they have lost, which is good news for election integrity. Bad news in Nevada, because in their primary, the ballots were littering the streets of Las Vegas, flowing out of garbage cans, stapled to the cork boards, or thumbtacked to the cork boards in apartment complexes. The Harry Reid machine is not some primed get out the vote. It's an illegal machine operation. There have been myriad studies out of Nevada to show you that what they mean by the Harry Reid machine is that there will be scores of votes that will be cast from voters who should not be on the rolls, but they're all registered to the same address. It's like a parking lot. It's that bad. There are 200,000 of them. I think it's terrible for election integrity and it's terrible for Trump's chances of winning in Nevada. That's it. They need a federal judge to throw it out or else they're screwed. Because, and I showed you the numbers, Nevada in Clark County, it is 70% roughly of the total vote statewide. But when we're talking about these ballots that is particular to the policy you're discussing, they are 80% of the statewide ballots that are a problem. There are roughly 200,000 ballots that should not go out, that will get filled in by activists and cheaters. I'm not saying they're going to fill in all 200,000, but now they got a pool of 200,000 that they can choose to fill in. And nobody will catch them because the verification procedures are gone. Florida is different. They lost. That's why you saw Trump tweet say it's tried and true. Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's true. It's tried. It's not true, though. There has been a lot of fraud in the state of Florida, Broward County. We have caught them ourselves, but it's not as bad as what it is for Nevada. So what does it mean for Trump's chances? He's got to win beyond the margin of fraud. He's got to win big. He carried independents by 7 points in Nevada, and the Republican turnout was juiced, and he still lost by about 2 points. Gary Johnson absolutely could have cost him the state of Nevada. There's no doubt. Same thing for other states we've gone over before. However, now it means it's not a big state. 200,000 ballots is an enormous percentage of the vote. It's not a big state. It's not a populated state. So it's a problem. I mean, Republicans sitting on their butts 2 years. They had the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and they did nothing about election integrity. It was an enormous problem. People like us, me, were castigated, told it was a conspiracy theorists, this is where we are. So he's got to win, and he would have to win it big. All right. Nevada leans Biden.
All right. Next question from J.K. Luck. It's a two-part question. One, are there a few things that let you get your vote back from early voting? And two, what do you think about Iowa, Kim Reynolds letting felons vote now with executive order?
Yeah, you can't get your vote back. It's gone in most places. I think there are some places now where you can file a provisional ballot and then an election committee would have to go. It's not going to happen. If you early vote and you have voter remorse, you're screwed. It's over. You cast your vote. It's done. And in Wisconsin, I will never forget one of the comments from one of the people we polled. She went off on a tangent, man. It was an open-ended text question. I voted for this scumbag Clinton. She was so funny. And she was from, I think she was Dane or something. She was somewhere in the Bow Wow area, in the Wow area. If not Dane. It was hilarious. I mean, just going on and on. That should absolutely be. And if, by the way, if you didn't see the show on solutions for election fraud, if we did it my way, one of the solutions where the same thing I do for corporate clients or union clients who come to me and need a proxy vote done, if we did it my way, a secure way, online, then you would be able to go in there and change your vote. As long as that went through the secure verification process, you would still be able to do it. So it would be do you want to update your vote? Right? People would be able to change their vote. And we'd be able to see. It would be so transparent. It wouldn't be some secret. We wouldn't have to wait for Wayne County to report their freaking results at 1:00 in the morning to see what's going on. Everybody would already know. It would be. What was the second part of that question again, real quick? You don't have to unmute your mic. What was?
Well, it was simple. It was about Kim Reynolds, about letting felons vote.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit torn on this because of a few reasons. Number one, I am absolutely a second chancer. I'm not perfect. I have not lived my life perfect. And it doesn't mean, and other people are not, human. I know one perfect person. He was crucified 2,000 years ago, roughly, right? Because it's 20 years, he's 30 years old. Get my point. He was 2,000 years ago, and the only perfect person to ever walk the earth was crucified. I believe in second chances, and America historically was the land of second chances. Wyatt Earp was a criminal. Wyatt Earp, who is celebrated as one of the greatest lawmen of the West, was a criminal. He was a drunk, a horse thief, and a loser. And he got a second chance, and he became one of the greatest lawmen ever to live. That is what America is all about. Christian values, I'm sorry whether you believe in it or not, and I'm not a Bible thumper, but the principles is what America is all about. However, I'm also a realist who understands that Democrats use desperate people to win elections unfairly. They use desperate people in desperate lives and situations looking for something to believe in, something to be bigger than them, to be part of something important. They're predators, man. They're predators of unhappy people. And they cheat a lot. So I'm a realist. In truth, if you look at the actual numbers, Virginia is the only case where you could really say, wow, felon voting mattered a lot because they had a machine and they were able to translate all of those votes into Democratic votes. But in other states, to include states like Arizona, that hasn't really been the case. That's been around for a long time. And in Florida, in fact, and, Laura and I were stunned when we were looking at this. When you're talking about white felons, of those who have or intended to register to vote, and then the Secretary of State's data actually, it bore polling out. A majority of those felons who are white intended to vote Republican. Not a big majority, but a majority. And of black voters who were ex-felons, it was only about 80% Democrat, which was less than the electorate overall. I know. It stunned me, and I don't expect that to be that way everywhere. But we actually do see that in the month-to-month updating of Florida numbers. It's not always black and white, is my point. Now, in Virginia, they single-handedly turned that from a purple, light blue state to a blue state with doing that. They did. That coupled with immigration and migration to the DC swamp Nova area. All right, let me give her a chance to ask him.
Okay. Historical Footnotes wants to know, what are your thoughts on Dr. Roger Marshall's win in the GOP Senate primary in Kansas last night? Well, this was the other day. And how much does this help President Trump in Kansas in November?
So, that's a good question. So, President Trump is going to carry Kansas, but that race was important to the U.S., the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. I know a lot of people outside of Kansas love Chris Kobach, and they love him on immigration, especially Trumpers, because Chris gets it. He understands the game, what the game is. However, he doesn't have the image that in Kansas, and he's got a history there, and it goes way beyond the issue of immigration. It really does. There is a history there that people who aren't familiar with local Kansas politics don't really understand. He polls terrible among independents, and it's almost like the Dakota with Kramer and Heidi Heitkamp. For a while there, it was so good. Independents were breaking so well for Heidi Heitkamp that our mapping of the electorate, and we did, all disclosure, we polled for the Republicans in that race, that we were the pollster who did work there, and we released some public, some private for clients. It was always, if like Heitkamp could have won 2-1 and there was low Republican turnout, she could have squeaked it with a small, like less than 2% win. That is the way it is in Kansas if Chris is the nominee. There's a lot of money that would have had to been poured into that state unnecessarily. So it takes that race off the table for Democrats, and it makes it so that money can be redirected elsewhere, whether it be to defending Cory Gardner in Colorado, who may not be as vulnerable as people think. Joni Ernst is not vulnerable. I'm not entertaining that crap in Iowa. Joni Ernst is going to win. All right? End of story. And then in Maine, and I will let you know when I see something in Iowa to go, oh my God. But at the height of his worst, Trump was up by 10. I know the media showed like 3, 5, whatever. We had him by 10 in Iowa and Ernst. And the Republicans would have won every single district, every single congressional district. So I don't really know what they're talking about. I can't, but Maine, Susan Collins in Maine, who was also very popular just a few years before the Kavanaugh thing. So she may be a little bit harder to take out than Democrats think. But there are a lot of races that Republicans, that's the nature of the U.S. Senate. The way that the 6-year term rolls, it's the way it works. Some years are going to be favorable to Republicans. They had a very favorable year in 2014, for instance. In 10, very favorable. In 12, not so much. And then, they lost some of the gains in the House and everything. because of it and Obama's reelection. 2014, superb map for Republicans. 2016, a difficult map for Republicans. 2018, an extremely difficult map for Republicans. But it will change as time goes on. That is the nature of the U.S. Senate, the balance power in the U.S. Senate. Kansas needed to not be a question if Republicans were going to hold on. I know that some people were referencing another scoper, and I'm not going to, I'm just not doing it. Yeah, but they were like, hey, so-and-so said that, the control of the U.S. Senate was gone if Chris was the nominee. I wouldn't take it that far, but it was not good. Yeah, I would have put it at like 75-25 if Chris Kobach won that nomination. All right. Okay. I think that's going to, one more. Laura's giving me the one more finger. It's one.
Well, it's because I want to know the answer to this question too. Does Michelle Obama change the game as a VP pick for Biden?
I wouldn't expect that, folks. I wouldn't. Let me get time for the beep state talk. All right. Joe Biden again pushed back who he is choosing as his vice presidential nominee. And it's not because he didn't have a choice or hasn't decided yet. They had decided. And then there was a leak, a last minute derail. And this is what I have been warning you about with a potential Biden administration. If Trump is like a boat rocker because he's changing the status quo. Biden will be his own bit of a boat rocker, even though he's pledging to get back to normal, because he's not in charge. Because what you're going to see during big decisions like this is a fight between the people who are around Joe Biden. The fight was won. It was Kamala Harris, and that was the way it was going to be. And then you saw a last minute leak to Politico that was a hit piece to derail her. Joe Biden should have already announced Kamala Harris as his vice presidential. Now it's back to Joe's still debating. And it could be Susan Rice, or I don't think it's going to be Michelle Obama, folks. I just don't. I don't. And I don't think she would particularly hurt or help anybody. I really don't. Vice presidential nominees typically don't matter. They do now, though. They don't historically. Like, we go back and look, did so-and-so help somebody at the top of the ticket? The answer is always no. Maybe they're good. The strongest evidence I've ever seen is maybe 1 to 2 points. That's it. But it's typically nothing. Michelle Obama is not somebody, as much as America may like her, she's not somebody that people are going to look to and say, you know what, if Joe Biden kicks the bucket tomorrow or forgets Jill's name tomorrow, can she take over? I actually think, it call me crazy, Susan Rice has more of a resume to be able to do that. So I don't think even Joe or the people around him are that stupid. I really don't. I wouldn't think it's changing anything. Oh my God. Lord.
Sesame shows didn't mean nothing for Michelle Obama.
No. That's the answer to that. I will say it doesn't. You don't have to do that. I'll do it for you. I can do it as long as I'm the one who initially does it. No, that's not going to help. And what did she do? She got a job at. She's going to talk about the work she did at the hospital where she got paid $750,000 or $1/3 to do nothing. I mean, she was. I just don't see it. I really don't see it. She'd have to run for like Senate. Or bid to be the governor of Illinois or something. That I can see. And then she makes a run. I don't think we have ever seen something like that. Would be totally unprecedented. And I actually think that it that it would poll a lot better than it actually would be, because I think there are a ton of people, and this is just me talking from a Florida pollster point of view. I've seen this in polls before. I think that there are going to be like a rather significant percentage of people who are afraid to tell you that not on their life would they ever let Michelle, or want to let Michelle Obama or somebody like her who doesn't really have any real experience be the president or the number two. It's a Joe Biden heartbeat away from being the president simply because she's an African-American woman and a former first lady. I can tell you that there's a chunk of America out there who would tell the pollster, "Oh yeah, so I'm gonna vote Biden Obama ticket this time instead of Obama Biden. Yeah, I'm gonna vote, But then they get in the ballot box and they're like, "No freaking way, man!" And that happened too a little bit to some extent with Andrew Gillum in Florida. But okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, Ashwin also asked you, she said, "Good morning, Rich. Enjoyed your show with Barnes. You both were talking about running crowdfund polls. Could you elaborate on that? Also, how can we contribute to it?"
Best question of the day, Ashwin. And this will be the way I take it out because I was going to basically do the pitch with that anyway, right? So what we're talking about, Ashwin, is if we continue to see this structure in this industry, which is very different from the way it is when you're a private pollster, it's only going to get worse. And so we wanted to do something about it where the pollster is accountable to the very people who have an interest in knowing accurate results, which is the voter, right? So this has been brought to me a couple of times. And actually, Rasmussen Reports asked me my opinion on it, and they have done crowdfunding themselves. They chose GoFundMe. We want to do it as transparent as possible. So maybe we will do a combo of GoFundMe and right here. But what we're saying is in about 25 subscribers, we'll have the ability to take it right on the show as we're talking here. So there'll be like crowdfunding bursts or episodes, and you could come watch the show. We'll tell you what the poll is that we're going to do, how we're going to do it, where you can get the results, how in depth it will be. And I will tell you, just to elaborate on what we have in mind, it will be the most transparent polling you can get. I'm not only going to tell you how the respondent was gathered, but where we got the data source from. If I got an online panel, did we build it through the voter file? Did we go to a vendor who we got the responses from? And did that come from a voter file? Are they verified registered voters? Unlike YouGov, for instance. All right. Did we give them any money to take the survey? Were they incentivized? So when you go, there'll be a map, and there'll be literally a dots, points on the map, and you'll be able to hover over it, and it will say a 36-year-old male lives in so-and-so zip code, whatever, is white, works, doesn't work, was collected via online panel, or maybe he responded through a text message to his cell phone. Maybe we called him, we gave him a live interview on the telephone, or was he called and given an IVR, interactive voice response? It will be that detailed and that transparent. And you'll be able to contribute right here. All right. We're almost there. We're not there yet. We're almost there. My biggest concern was that we would start it because we want it to be a tracker. And I will tell you more about the idea. I'll probably let you guys choose between 2 or 3 ideas, but I'll give you my preference. My preference is the Rust Belt Battleground poll idea. That is the one idea that I favor, that I've been kicking around, and others have great ideas too. But I think that the Rust Belt is the area of the country where the election will be either over early or not. Okay, so if we know Biden sweeps all 3 of the Rust Belt states, it's over. Or Trump is holding Pennsylvania. It's close in whatever, Michigan. It's close in Wisconsin. Biden carries Michigan. I'm just making up things here. Mm-hmm. But Minnesota is like, oh my God, Trump could flip that one too. It could be crazy, right? That is the area of the state where we need to know the area of the country where we need to know what is going on. So I proposed an idea called the Rust Belt Battleground poll. And it is not just simply calling all of those 6 Rust Belt states: Iowa, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Minnesota. That is the idea. And then each of them have been a historic share of the Rust Belt vote for many years now. So we can know how many responses from that particular state we will need. And then from there, we'll be able to give results for each state and a top line result and compare it to Trump versus Clinton, Obama versus Romney, McCain versus Kerry. We'll be able to show you who is performing better relatively. And then there are some other ideas like the Sun Belt, right? Poll. I think Trump's going to carry Florida. I think he is. He's going to underpoll like every Republican does, and he's going to carry the state of Florida. I just know Florida like the back of my hand. And I'm telling you that Democrats are too weak there. And they would need to win independents by a very large margin. And the most enthusiastic voter in the United States right now for Donald Trump is a Florida Republican. That's just true. All right. So that's my idea. All right. So I hope that helps. I'll answer more questions about that in the upcoming days. But most importantly, right now, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already. We need to kind of make this like a big thing. 100,000 people a day used to visit the U.S. presidential election daily tracking poll in 2016. 100,000 people. It needs to be like that in order to continue funding. And even still, Laura and I spent thousands and thousands of dollars of our own money to get it going. Thousands and thousands. And we just can't do that this time. We can't do a public service. And by the way, that's not going to change the fundamental problem with this industry, which is what we need to do. Last time, it just turned into, slinging mud war narrative. That's a fake pollster. This pollster sucks. That's all it'll be if we do it the same way again. That's going to get us absolutely nowhere. I'm trying to do something so transparent that readers, whether you're on the left or you're on the right, you'll see what we do, and you'll look at Fox News and CNN and everybody else, and you'll say, why the hell don't they give what Rich gives? Why isn't it as transparent as the Rust Belt Battleground poll or whatever poll we turn out to do? And you'll look at them, and it'll be because you'll see how shady it is. And you'll start to demand transparency. The best thing, the best cure for any kind of sickness like this industry suffering from right now is sunlight. Transparency. And when I show you as much as I want to be able to show readers, and we get to that level, that's why both Robert and I yesterday were praising Nate Cohen at the New York Times. He's not a pollster, but he's trying to be as transparent as he's trying. I don't think he's going to be right, but he's trying. And I applaud him for that. That is the right direction. I just think and know we could do a lot more. If I had the budget the New York Times had, there's really no excuse for what holding back or not explaining some of the decisions that they're making over there, because it's not a matter of money. All right. And I'm trying to do something so transparent, so different that the electorate, no matter what your political view is, you look at it and you will demand it from everybody else. And you will say there is something wrong with this poll or that poll for not showing us that information. Everybody should show us what, the Rust Belt, what big data polls Rust Belt Battleground poll shows us. And that's the way, that is the only way. You have to really make the pollster accountable to you. This has got to change. It's only going to get worse if we don't try something radical and drastic. We've got to do it. All right. Wait, is that seriously another question? I'm ready to kick out of here. Okay. Laura just wants to say something.
I just want to say that I think this whole entire thing you want to do with Barnes is going to force them to actually be more truthful than they are, or they're going to just look like morons.
That's the goal. So, if it doesn't force their hand, it'll almost not matter, because people will say to themselves, why doesn't everybody do this? I don't accept being kept in the dark like this. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. And it's almost, of course, we'll try to be, because my incentive will be to be accurate for the people who are funding the poll. I want to be accurate for them. I have always cared more about being accurate than the person I want winning to win. I've always cared more about that. Always. Now, people like, that are political gamblers who listen like Robert, their incentive will be to make money. Not in a way the media is incentivized to do so, but for their own personal, they want accurate data. Not people that are accepted by big media. They want accurate data. So it makes me accountable to that. And that is, you got to do that with everybody else. You have to force them into that position. Otherwise, it will be this shadowy one miss after the other. one Donnelly +7 and Gillum +12 after another. And that's it. So don't forget, I'm going to take us out of here with bad habit. I just got killed. Am I out? No. Oh, there's a storm coming. I'm going to take us out of here with bad habit, which is the Grammy considered band. Grammy considered Bowen band. God, I'm never going to get this right. You know what? While we're doing testing in a little bit, just make me do it over and over and over because they deserve to get their damn name right. All right. I'm sorry about that, guys. All right. But don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell like-minded people or people you think would be interested in it what we're trying to do over here. Like I've said, nobody has been more transparent than I have with the voter files and showing people the actual data sources that we have done. I'm trying to bring you the same with polling. If you think, other people who would be interested in that and find value in that, share it with them and tell them to subscribe to the page on YouTube. Get us up there, bump us up there, because it will take a groundswell to do it, and then to keep it going, it will. I remember 2016. It does. All right. And then, of course, if you're a Facebook user, like the page on Facebook, and the ultimate way to support the show itself inside the numbers is to become a subscriber to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to pbdnews.us/subscribe. pbdnews.us/subscribe. But one goal at a time, folks. Share the page. Like it if you didn't already. And we will see you tomorrow on, it's Free Will and Friday. If I missed your questions, Laura will get those. I know she will on Free Will and Friday. All right. All the best, folks. Be safe. See you tomorrow at 11 in case something crazy happens. All the best.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.